A taste of Martin Buber's I and Thou. Born in 1878 in Vienna, Martin Buber was a Jewish philosopher widely regarded as one of the most influential intellectuals of his generation. He worked across many fields, and often Buber's ideas had a wide influence across many disciplines and faith traditions. At his core, he believed and sought to teach every person should be understood on their own terms, regardless of their background or religious beliefs. Sounds pretty you to me. His body of work was influenced by many areas: his Jewish Hasidic heritage, his deep study of Western and Eastern philosophy, and the positive, his wife, and the negative, his mother, relationships he had. All of the arts had an impact too. He loved theater and paintings the most. World War I, as to be expected, had a profound life changing impact as well. His most important and famous work was Ich und Du, in English, I and Thou. Within this book, he created the famous word pairs I, it, and I, thou. Thankfully, I and thou does not require a lot of prior knowledge of philosophy or theology. Buber wrote I and Thou because he saw society becoming too reliant on technology and industry. A century later, we still are. And for us to rediscover being human is about relationships. Again, very core you. After World War I, Buber was responding to the quote, the growing difficulty of genuine dialogue, quote, very similar to our current battles over truth and civility and social media. I and Thou offered a bold new model to understand human existence and relationships. He challenges us to reconsider assumptions about how human life is structured. He challenged prevailing scientific or technological means of engagement with the world. However, a number of thinkers around the same time in the 1920s and independent of each other developed similar insights on dialogue. In I and Thou, Buber does not explicitly debate with other thinkers. However, he responds implicitly to them. Many years later, he would write explicit debates with other thinkers, which are considered extended footnotes to I and Thou. I and Thou has an interesting writing style, which was influenced by the 1920s Viennese culture. Buber did not believe the word pairs could be explained well in technical language because ultimately the word pairs are beyond linguistic expression. Buber chose to present the word pairs through aphorisms and metaphors, ordered by theme but not systematically, and by use of poetic language. One of the important poetic metaphors was the butterfly and caterpillar to explain the word pairs. The I and Thou book draws upon a reader's imagination and reason. Let us understand the word pairs. The I and Thou book is divided into three parts. I will be presenting the very beginning of part one, where the word pairs are introduced. In I and Thou, Buber mapped out how people related to the world in two different ways, named by the word pairs I, it, and I, thou. Buber does not explain exhaustively, which he chose to do, what are the word pairs, but provides enough definition to intuit their meaning. A note, I will be including animals such as cats, dogs, birds, etc., as the other in regard to relationships. Buber, as a boy, had a deep connection with a horse, and later in his life had cats living with him. As for nature, that would require a whole nother presentation. The first word pair, I, it. And I, a person, uses, manipulates, or classifies an object or another person or animal in a detached and impersonal manner as an it. And it can be quantified and described by virtue of its detail or texture, color, name, distance, emotion, or function. This relationship is not inherently negative or evil unless the person chooses to stay stuck relating in I, it. I, it relating allows for the development of science and other areas of knowledge. The I in I, it has only the past to understand, not the present. For example, a bank teller is essentially understood as a person who gives or takes our money. A tree is lumber waiting to be harvested. One valid criticism of I thou was that Buber did not explain more about I it. The next word pair, I thou, expanding upon the German sense of du, a person's relationship with a person or animal, sometimes an object, is not about how to use, define, or classify a person or animal from a distance, but go beyond those actions. The person seeks to form a relationship of wholeness or unity, but respects the difference and uniqueness of both parties. And I appreciates the presence of and being in unity with the other as thou. The relationship is created between the person and the other person or animal. I thou relation is something a person truly lives. All real encounter is living. The I lives, embraces the present, moving beyond the past. For example, the bank teller is respected as a person like us with desires, dreams, and loved ones. The tree has a purpose besides providing lumber, that is, air, shade, and beauty. Let's bring this together, I it and I thou. People need both word pairs. The I it is needed for coordinating human activity, for producing materials or doing science, and for creating institutions to sustain life. The I thou is needed to create and sustain meaningful relationships with other persons or animals, and thus the person becomes fully themselves as well as with other person or animal. These word pairs are not limited, restricted, or understood only as verbal or written expressions. The deaf, the blind, and the nonverbal all can relate as both word pairs. The word pairs are always dynamically shifting between them as an ongoing process. We should not be stuck in the it or the thou mode, for that becomes self destructive or destructive towards others. And there is no need to choose between the two pairs. One pair is not evil or worse than the other. The word pairs are not incompatible opposites, nor as either or. Buber explains this shifting using the metaphor of the butterfly and the caterpillar. For, ex- for example, at first we may interact with the bank teller as an it, focusing on the money. Then we may see they are a person affirming their work with them with a thank you or asking about their life, thus as thou. We may at first enjoy the beauty and the shade of the tree as thou, then we might need to use the tree to help make a tool, a house, or something else. Throughout any period of time, we shift between it and thou in our relating to the bank teller and the tree. However, if we stay stuck with it, we ignore and lose the tree's perceived beauty. If we stay stuck with thou, we may misunderstand or disrespect the needed boundaries and roles of the bank teller. The best example are teachers, for they must shift between I it and I thou with their students to be effective and inspiring. What of Buber and you? Much of Buber's ideas and expressions of I and thou have been embraced by you over the past century. Buber even gave a lecture once to a UU group meeting in Germany. Here are some examples of Buber and UU found from the General Assembly website. From The Five Major Ingredients of Covenant by James Luther Adams, human beings individually and collectively become human by making a commitment, by making promises. The human being as such, as Martin Buber says, is the promise making, promise keeping, promise breaking, promise renewing creature. The human being is the promise maker, the commitment maker. Another one, the unity consulting approach to congregational governance. In the words of 20th century Unitarian theologian James Luther Adams, that, quote, relationship revelation is conscious and that the board does its work. And in the words of Jewish philosopher and theologian Martin Buber, quote, listen to the course of being in the world and bring it to reality as it desires. Another from Tapestry of Faith, Faith as a River, quote, the real essence of community is to be found in the fact manifest or otherwise that is the center. The real beginning of the community is when its members have a common relation to the center overriding all other relations. The circle is described by its radii, not by the points along its circumference. From Buber. Counting our blessings. And here we are aware of the Judaic tradition expressed by Martin Buber, who describes life itself as the experience of relating to others, and so doing being in relationship to eternal thou. Quote, all real living is meaning. Buber reminds us, surely this is why he describes the sickness of the soul as sickness of the relationship. And finally, the 1966 Ware lecture, Don't Sleep Through the Revolution, by Martin Luther King Jr. Hollywood, Florida, May 18th, 1966. Segregation is evil, to use the thinking of the Jewish philosopher Martin Buber, because it substitutes an I-it relationship for an I-thou relationship. In the end, Buber is not teaching us a dogma, a system, nor a doctrine, rather pointing to insights to help us understand the lived relationships in our lives. Thank you.